What is up everybody, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact video, and today we're going to be doing a Ganyu guide. So Ganyu is one of the characters that just came out in the newest banners along with Zhongli. I did summon for Ganyu. I didn't record it though because I mean they didn't really go that well, so I eventually did get her, but I didn't record it at all, so but anyways, we're just going to get into the guide. So what I'm going to be covering is going to be her best artifacts, her best build, her best teammates, and a little bit of a showcase. But I don't really have her like super invested as far as talents go. Her artifacts are pretty decent, but I don't have the correct artifacts for this team, or for the Melt team at least. I don't have the Wanderer set, but regardless of that, let's just get right into the video. One of the rerun 5 stars that just came back, and if you guys don't already know this, she's pretty much being used as a main DPS or a support. Very strong main DPS and a very good support. The reason she's run as a main DPS most of the time is because of her charge shots. We'll get into the modifiers later on in the video, but let's just quickly talk about her weapons. So her best in slot is obviously going to be the ammo bow, and you can't really go wrong with that. Anything else, any other 5-star is also really good, I'm pretty sure. You can't go wrong with using 5-star just because of their base attack is so high. But as far as 4-star weapons, since obviously I don't have access to ammo bow, I'm going to be using the prototype Crescent because that is the best 4-star weapon that you can use for her. I don't really recommend anything else. Viridescent Hunt is okay, but you're better off just using the prototype Crescent because of that. When you hit weak points, you get a ton of attack. So if you have an R5, you can get like 72%. So it's really good. This weapon right here, the Moon's Moon. I mean, that's pretty good for support Ganyu, I guess, but you shouldn't really be running Ganyu as a support, more as a DPS. You can run her as a support if you want to. It's just she does so much damage as a main DPS, so why wouldn't you run her as a main DPS? As far as artifacts go, she has 2 builds. So you have the Melt Ganyu and the Cryo Ganyu, or the Cryo team, pretty much, where you freeze everything and so that they don't move. So the freeze team, it's pretty obvious you're going to be running the Blizzard Strayer set because it is the best set to use for a Cryo team or a freeze team. You shouldn't use anything else. All this extra crit rate you get from just pretty much putting it on and being a freeze character is ridiculous. So I mean, I'm pretty sure the numbers, you get like 75% extra crit rate from this. Well, I know it's 6 or 40 right now, plus the, if you run Crowd Resonance, which you're most likely going to, that's another 15%. So it is about 65, 70. And Ganyu also has a passive that gives a 20% bonus crit rate as well. So if you're running Cryo Ganyu, or not Cryo Ganyu, but Freeze Ganyu, then you're just gonna stack as much crit damage as you possibly can on this Blizzard Strayer set. As you can see here, I got a, regardless of this artifact, ignore this one, but pretty much all my other artifacts have crazy high crit damage that I'm stacking. You can see here, well, that's not crazy high, but that's what I'm pretty much doing. So right now my stats are looking like this. They look bad, but technically with Blizzard Strayer, these are perfectly fine. I think this is at least 100 crit rate, give or take, if you run her with a freeze team. Unfortunately for me, I realize I don't really have the units to run the perfect freeze team. I don't have Mona or Kokomi, and you need those two to either run the freeze team perfectly. Kokomi is the best Hydro applicator or whatever for a freeze team with Ganyu because of her charge shots. And Mona is also second when it comes to applying Hydro, but her bubble or her ultimate is really good. So I don't have the units, I don't have Kazo or Venti either, so I can't run the freeze team. So, which kind of sucks because I do have a really good artifacts for it, but eventually I'll get those units. Regardless of that, the artifact set that you're going to be running for the Melt Ganyu is going to be the Wanderer's Troop set, just because you get that 2-piece set, which is 80 Elemental Mastery, and your 4-piece set, which increases your charge attack damage for both characters, which is really good for Ganyu considering all her damage comes from her charge shots. I don't really see that you should run anything else. You could run Retracing Bolide if you want, if you're going to use her with a shield. However, I would just recommend doing Wanderer's Troop. You could also use Shimenawa's, but again, Shimenawa takes away a bunch of energy, so it's kind of hard. It does out DPS Wanderer's Troop, but I think Wanderer's Troop with a bunch of Elemental Mastery and whatever can compete with it. So I think it's better off just doing Wanderer's Troop because it's a constant buff all the time, and you don't really have to worry about it. So That's my take on it. Those are pretty much what you're going to be using for her best artifacts. I think it's quite obvious what you're going to be running on her, and that's going to be traditional DPS artifacts, so cryo damage, crit damage, and attack percent. Unless you're running Melt Ganyu. If you're running Melt Ganyu, then make sure your Sans is Elemental Mastery. That's the best that you can use on her. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for artifacts here. I'm going to quickly cover whether or not her constellations are worth it. At least her first constellation, because most people might be able to get the first one. If you do already have Ganyu and you're looking to get constellations on her, her first constellation is okay. It pretty much gives her more cryo res on her charge shots and also some energy when you hit a target, so it's decent. Do I think it's worth it? No, I don't think you should be spending all your wishes on this Constellation 1 if you already have Ganyu, because it's pretty much a waste in my opinion. It's not worth the amount of wishes it's going to take to get her, or to get this constellation. What I think you should do is go for the Ammo's Bow if you already have Ganyu and you don't already have Zhongli and stuff. I would say go for the Ammo's Bow if you don't have it, because it's a very strong weapon for her, and this will give you way more damage than this constellation here. The rest of the constellations I don't think I really need to talk about, because nobody's really going to have access to them unless they're a whale. I mean, obviously C2 is pretty much, I mean, it's okay, but it's pretty much useless. It's not worth your money. And the same thing with everything else, unless you get to C6 and where that's pretty much broken. But again, you're probably not going to have access. I'm talking about C0 players or free-to-play players, you know, people that don't spend that much money in the game and don't have tons of constellations on 5 stars. So that's gonna be pretty much it for this section. Alright, well, let's talk about talents. I'm pretty sure everybody knows this, but again, if you don't know, Ganyu's charge shots have ridiculously high modifiers. As you can see here, the second one, so her second bloom does 300%, and her first bloom does 200%, equaling to around 500% and over damage. And it just gets higher the more you level it up. So imagine you have it at level 10, and I don't know what the exact number is, but it's probably close to 600, 700%, even more, and just how high that modifier is for her charge shots. And it hits twice, so it's going to hit both of these as long as you're charging it to level 2. That's what makes Ganyu so broken, because her charge shots modifiers are so high. I don't know why they did this, but that's what just makes her so strong. So when you melt it, it's crazy damage. And even regular freeze teams, if you don't melt it, just regular freeze teams, it's really good. So you can't go wrong with that. Her second talent, this is just a taunt. Nothing crazy about it. It's pretty good, so the enemies don't shoot you. Your C6, or no, C6, what am I even talking about? Her ultimate is solid. I'm pretty sure you can have it up all the time. It has 5 icicles that go to enemies, and the more enemies that are in it, for example, if you have 5 enemies, one icicle will hit each enemy. If you have less, then it'll be 3 that hit, it'll be 3 of them that hit those 3 enemies, and then the other 2 are just random. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully it does. Also, this ultimate lasts pretty much all the time, and you can have it almost up all the time if you have enough energy. But either way, regardless of that, let's talk about her passive. So her first passive gives her 20% bonus crit rate off her charge shots. So after you hit one charge shot or shoot one charge shot, you will get 20% bonus crit rate. And this is going to be up almost all the time, because you're going to be shooting multiple charge shots. You're never really going to only shoot one. So this is basically a guaranteed extra 20% bonus crit rate built into her passive. Her second passive gives her 20% bonus cryo damage when she's in her ult. So a lot of the times when you're using Melt Ganyu, you're not going to really be using her ult, because you don't want it to melt. You want Ganyu's charge shots to do the melting. So most of the time you're not going to really be seeing this. If you're using her as cryo or in a freeze team, then you'll be seeing this all the time, because you're going to have your ult and you're going to be using it all the time. So it's 20% bonus cryo damage. I don't know why her passives are so good, but regardless of that, you can see here, this is what makes her even more broken than she already is. She has crazy good modifiers, crazy good passives, an extra 20% cryo damage, and an extra 20% crit rate. So her last passive, useless, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. let's talk about teams. So there's going to be two sides of this, because again, there's two ways to build Ganyu. Well, technically three ways, but I'm not going to talk about the support way. If you want to build her as a support, then you can just build her as a sub DPS support and run her with other characters like Hu Tao or any other Pyro character or any other Hydro character. You know, so it's up to you what you want to do. If you want Ganyu as a support, then you can pretty much fit her on any team that needs Cryo. And that's it. You build her as a DPS. Either way, regardless of that, let's get back into this. So the two other builds that you have are going to be Melt and Freeze, like I've been saying before. So for Melt, which is what I'm using because I don't have access to a good Freeze team, and I think this is the best I can do for now. But for Melt, this is going to be probably your best Melt team that you can use, being these four characters. So Xiangling will apply Pyro as an AoE, and Bennett can also apply Pyro as well as buff and heal. And then Zhongli will just provide a resistant shred, 20%, and keep it from Ganyu getting destroyed when you're in your charge shots, because you're very vulnerable when you're aiming in and shooting. It can take a few seconds, and you're not going to be dodging when you're shooting charge shots, so you're going to need a shield most of the time. The other characters that you can use, like pick and plug, I've seen people either substitute Xiangling for Jean, and Jean's ultimate will apply the Pyro from Bennett's ultimate. However, I don't know exactly how that works and how well it works since I haven't tested it out yet. Again, I just got Ganyu, so I'm working on it and testing her out. So, but I wanted to get this guide out pretty quickly and just talk about it here. So you could, like I said, run Jean. You could run Sucrose for Xiangling and again apply all that Pyro. But I think Jean is probably better than that. If you guys have access to Kazuha or Venti, then you're way better off. Most of the time, what people will do is substitute Xiangling for Kazuha, and then you'll run Ganyu, Kazuha, Bennett, and Zhongli, and that's actually a strong team. I mean, you do have three of the most broken supports in the game, and the most broken DPS, in my opinion. But so of course that's going to be strong. Those three supports are going to be strong with anybody. But regardless of that, that team works really well because Kazuha can apply all of Bennett's Pyro with his ultimate, and then now you have basically everyone being applied with Pyro constantly, and you can just melt with Ganyu. So I don't have access to those characters, so I can't tell you how well that works, but I've seen videos and stuff like that, so I can't show you at least. You could use Venti. Venti's perfectly fine, but I think if you already do have Venti and you have and you have Mona and stuff, Mona or Kokomi, then you should just run the Freeze team instead. I think it's way easier to use. Melt is kind of tough, so, but let's just get back into it. I think those are pretty much all the substitutes that you can use as far as Pyro teams go, or Melt teams. I don't know anybody else that you can really put in, because I mean, I'm sure you could substitute out Zhongli for Diona for if you don't want to use his shield and you want to use Diona's because you want to put Zhongli on another team, so you could do that. But the characters you're going to need are going to be Bennett. Bennett is almost a staple on the Melt team, so you need Bennett on a Melt team. And then either some other Pyro character or some other character that can apply Pyro. So that could be any other animal character, for example, Sucrose, Venti, or Kazuha, or Jean, or another Pyro character, I guess, but I don't see anybody else you could really use here in that slot. Nobody else applies Pyro like Xiangling does, so at least not off field. And then your last slot can just be pretty much anything. I recommend a shield. And I know that's took a long time to discuss, but that's pretty much what it is for Melt Ganyu. So let's talk about Freeze Ganyu. So for Freeze teams, I did quickly say this before, or mention it briefly, but your first character, or your first thing you're going to need is some sort of Hydro application, whether that's going to be Xingqiu, Barbara, Kokomi, or Mona. In my opinion, I don't recommend you should use, or Child, I forgot about it. In my opinion, I don't recommend that you should use anyone except Kokomi or Mona. I think those are the two best to use with Ganyu, because Ganyu can't really apply Xingqiu's rain swords in her charge shots, which is a little bit annoying because you have to keep unaiming, pressing your attack button, and then going back in, charge shotting, and then unaiming, and then, you know, again, repeat the same process. And unfortunately, Xingqiu's water swords only apply to one character at a time, while the rain swords only hit one enemy. They could spread apart and maybe hit other enemies if they miss, but if that happens, that's good, but most of the time it's not really going to happen. It's just, that's random, and it's tough to basically force it to happen. So you're most likely only going to be freezing at least one enemy at a time when you want to be doing multiple. That's what makes Kokomi or Mona so good, is because they have abilities or elemental skills and ultimates that apply Hydro in a huge AoE, making it so much easier to just swap to Ganyu, or swap to them, do whatever it is, skill their burst, and swap back to Ganyu and just keep charge shotting because everything's going to be frozen. So that's my opinion on it. I don't have access to this character, so that's why I'm not using that team. But as far as Barbara, her Hydro application is super close range, that's what kind of makes it bad. And she does apply Hydro to herself, along with a few other characters, so you can't get into situations where you freeze yourself, and that's pretty annoying. As far as your second slot's going to be, most of the time it's not going to be Bennett, because Bennett's going to be somewhere else. You don't need Bennett on freeze teams. You can run someone else, like any animal character that you want to use. The ones I could recommend are going to be Sucrose, Venti, Kazuha. That's what I would say. I don't know about Jean because she doesn't really have any group up kind of element and no way to apply all that cryo as well as Venti or Kazuha would. Sucrose does a decent job, but not as good as those other two. The best person you could use for that team, or for your animal character, is going to be Venti. So if you do have Venti, then you want to put him here, and if you do have Mona or Kokomi, then you want to put him where Xiangling is. Your last slot can be about anything, really. Whether you want to use another cryo character to get cryo resonance, or you want to use like a shield. However, in my opinion, you don't really need a shield with the freeze team, because if you have the correct characters for it, everything's going to be frozen almost 100% of the time. So in that instance, I would recommend running another cryo character like Rosaria or Ayaka, or Diona if you want for the extra heals, but Rosaria or Ayaka pretty much increase your damage by a ton and make you do a lot more DPS in that team. So hopefully that kind of covers everything. So I'll just quickly go over who the first slot's going to be. That can be Kokomi or Mona. Your second slot could be Kazuha, Venti, Sucrose, and your last slot could be preferably another crowd character or anything that you want it to be. And that's gonna cover everything I can about teams. So I'm gonna go into a showcase in another part of this video. Alright, so that was pretty much it for the showcase. One thing I want you guys to keep in mind is that I do only have level 6 talents on Ganyu, or well, one level 7 talent, but my charge shots, again, is only level 7. It's not crowned like other characters or things like that, so eventually I think I will be releasing either another guide or another showcase at some point when I do have Ganyu's talent crowned, and maybe this at level 8 and maybe this at level 6, but regardless of that, I think that's going to pretty much cover everything. The showcase was decent. I was doing good amounts of damage. However, you did notice that the Primo Geo Bishop was Cryo. Of course, when I want to do a showcase with Ganyu, the Primo Geo Bishop is Cryo, so it's going to have resistance to Cryo. But regardless of that, if you guys did make it to the end of the video, I really appreciate it, and I thank you guys all for watching my video and taking the time out of your day. If you guys could, subscribe. You did make it this far, and like the video as well. And yeah, I'll pretty much see you guys in the next one. Peace.